Hello, everyone. We'll get started here in just a moment. Okay, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I know we want to get started here at the top of the hour. I was just presented with an interesting GoToWebinar message that the webinar is having trouble recording, so I'm going to have to see if this is going to be recorded or not, but hopefully it will work out. So I know we have a good amount of existing customers registered along today, along with many new customers and companies, so welcome to everyone. We hope you get some helpful information from today's webinar. We are trying to record, as I just mentioned. Hopefully that's going to work out one way or another. We will have a recorded version of this, even if we have to do it a second time, available for those who want it. Everyone is muted, so please put your questions in the chat window. And then some of the slides today have links, as you're going to see, to some external blogs and articles and references. So please contact us afterward if you want the presentation slides so that you could get those links. So with that, we want to get started. I want to put this in full presentation mode, I guess. There we go. So today we're going to take a quick look at some slightly different, but we feel highly relevant topics today. That topic is really security when it comes to integrations between Rev-Track and third-party applications that that SAP customers are using, including ITSM solutions that you might be familiar with, maybe things like ServiceNow or BMC Remedy-Force, Sharewell, and others, or maybe integrations with agile development solutions such as Jira, Azure DevOps, Octane, others like that, and even SAP automated code checking and testing applications where we're seeing integrations such as things with ABAP Test Cockpit, or also known as ATC, or Live Compare, or Tricentis Tosca, Worksoft, and others, right? So that's really what we're going to talk about today. We're going to take a quick look at why this topic is important today, then dig in a little bit deeper into the security aspects of integrations. Won't go too deep, but give you some good information there. And after that, you'll get an overview and quick look at Revtrack's REST API configuration, just some screenshots there. And we should have a good amount of time for questions and answers at the end. I'll be doing my best to monitor the chat, but won't be able to get to the questions until the end. As I mentioned, we have existing customers, but also some new people that might not be familiar with Rev-Track. So I just wanted to take 2 minutes and 2 slides to give a brief introduction to our company, which is called Revelation Software Concepts, and our main software solution called Rev-Track. Right, we've been at this for almost 20 years now as a company. We've been part of the SAP Partner Network since 2002. We have lots of users of the Rev-Track software worldwide. We're happy to have those customers all over the world. As a company, we're 100% focused on SAP change control. So we integrate, as we're going to be talking today, with ITSM and testing solutions. So we don't lose focus on those. We just focus 100% on SAP automated change control. And the SAP teams, probably lots of people on today's call, they are our customers, right? The people that are responsible for the care and feeding of the SAP systems, keep them up and running, keep them operational, keep them performing well. We're located in Melbourne, Australia, our headquarters. That's where we were founded, but we have a US team here spread out on. Oh, by the way, my name is Dan McGran. I'm the Regional Sales Director with Revtrack, forgot that part. I'm located in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, happen to be close to the SAP headquarters, but we have other colleagues in other parts of the US and Europe and Australia to support our global customer base. And Revtrack itself, again, automated change management solution built in SAP's ABAP language. And what we focus on is delivering consistently good outcomes to our customers, right? And those outcomes are sort of listed here: faster, more frequent SAP releases, higher velocity of changes, because business customers want the changes today, not next week or next month when the next move to production is going to happen. We help our customers deal with higher volumes of all different types of SAP changing, changes while improving that change quality. That helps lower the cost and risk of managing that SAP change, help to deliver projects, whether they're S/4HANA transformation projects or other similar SAP projects that you're doing on time and on budget, and just overall improve the team productivity with an automation solution. Over on the right-hand side, a little hard to read, but we interview our customers and survey them on a yearly basis, and we record that information at this site called Tech Validate, and lots of information out there just to sort of prove that we do deliver these consistently good outcomes to our customers. And feel free to browse that if you have some time. Okay, so why is the topic of securing integrations between SAP change management solutions and third-party applications, like I was mentioning, relevant? That's what we want to cover first. So our customers and SAP customers in general have always really had an interest in integrating with third-party application, even going back many years. Primarily ITSM applications and sometimes testing or defect management solutions like the old HPQC, now renamed Micro Focus Quality Center, I believe. And as part of that customer surveys I was talking about, this was one of the questions we had sent out last year. We had asked our customers what are the most popular ALM solutions, is how we phrased it, that they would integrate with. And you can see here that this probably rings true with many on today's call. ServiceNow and Jira are at the top, with others following suit, right? And we've been able to help our customers with these integrations over the years through custom fields and user exits and web services-based integrations, which have really met their requirements up to this point. But lately, over the past few years, SAP customers have been really raising the bar on their integration requirements, looking for highly automated tool chain-based approaches, let's say, where the entire end-to-end process is orchestrated, it's stable, it's reliable, and of course, it needs to be secure. And that's why, as a company, we've invested heavily in REST API-based integrations over the past few years, and right now are the only SAP change management solution today with that deep REST API capability, especially with some of the security stuff we're going to talk about today. Regarding security, for all of us in the IT world, I think security has always been an important topic, but lately security is at the top of the list, right, for everyone. It's sort of off the charts, especially with the recent SolarWinds hacking situation that I think everyone's familiar with back in, that hit the headlines back in December and still capturing all those headlines. So today we'll cover some of these security-related acronyms, which you may or may not be familiar with here on the page. What's an SAP webinar without acronyms, right? The great news is that Revtrack as a company is very security conscious, right? From both a software development perspective, meaning that we have the right controls, the right processes in place. We even do external third-party penetration testing of our software on an annual basis to make sure that the software that goes out the door is as secure as possible. And then, and also we're aware and secure from the software architecture, perspective, meaning that Rev-Track supports really the most robust security protocols to safely install and operate the software, and that's what we're going to get into today. Our customers have told us that this security focus is very important because the SAP change management integrations that they're putting in place tend to have a long lifespan of 5, 10 or more years. So building them on a solid and secure foundation, let's say, is very important for them. Okay. So before getting a little bit deeper into the security aspect, I wanted to take a quick look at what we mean by integrations and why customers want to integrate with other solutions with an automated SAP change management software, like, for example, like Revtrack. So again, we work with lots of customers who are currently integrating their SAP change management processes with ITSM or testing processes, but they're doing that in a completely manual way, right? Meaning that they require everyone to update these multiple applications as the SAP changes progress through the development, testing, promote to production process. Sometimes even multiple applications are being updated for each activity, which, you can imagine, can lead to lots of issues, some of which we've sort of listed here on the screen. Many of these companies might have one or more full-time analysts who are responsible to chase everybody down and make sure all the applications are updated and they're in sync. And that's what we mean by that swivel chair approach to managing this. You know, one or more people are bouncing back and forth between these different applications, entering data, which unfortunately can be out of date really as soon as it's entered because it's not typically based on real-time information. And even in simple or asimple SAP environment, this can get out of sync and out of hand and out of control pretty quickly. So you might know the drill. Maybe something like this sounds familiar to you, right? These analysts are getting information about SAP transports from the team. They're entering them into the change ticket or incident ticket or JIRA user story or whatever you might be using. And then, maybe another transport is added, so that ticket needs to be updated. Then it maybe the next step in your process today is approving it into the quality system. Then at that point, maybe an email is sent, hopefully automatically with your current processes, from the ITSM or other solution to the basis team, asking them to manually import those transports into the systems. Then we know what happens next. The import into the quality either succeeds or fails. More updates to the ticket based on those results. Continuing on with the process, more approvals are made. Maybe documentation is attached. Let's say more transports added or removed during that testing process. Lots of updates to the applications along the way in a manual swivel chair approach. Eventually, you'll come out with a transport order, maybe a dependency list is established, maybe with some instructions for some manual in-between steps like activation of objects. You have to coordinate all that. Then some final emails are sent to the basis team, or again, more manual imports into the production system. So hopefully you're able to follow along there, but that's a lot of things to keep track of and updated in multiple applications. And so that's why we're seeing SAP customers want to automate these steps, right? They want to automate them while also adding the safety features that Rev-Track brings to the table, such as sequencing and dependency checks, which help reduce the risk of SAP system issues. And again, all of those things together in an automated way is what Rev-Track helps customers with. So maybe some customers might have seen this before, but here's a visual depiction of how we show these integrations between Rev-Track and other applications and how they could potentially integrate. We call it here our DevOps toolchain, but there's certainly other terms for it, a CI/CD or Agile Development Process Pipeline. Of course, I'm sure there'll be some new buzzword for it in 2021. But this diagram basically shows from the left to the right progression, starting with the need for a change through quality and testing steps and into production systems, sort of what I was just describing a moment ago. And the manual steps between the SAP and ITSM solutions such as ServiceNow could be imagined bouncing back and forth here between the SAP activities controlled in Rev-Track and ServiceNow with these sort of bi-directional arrows. So you can sort of imagine what I was just describing. And those blue arrows are manual points of integration for customers that are doing a manual activity between their SAP systems and their ITSM systems today. And each of those would sort of represent those swivel chair steps, those manual swivel chair steps, excuse me. Or they could stand for automated bi-directional integrations between Rev-Track and one or more of these applications with our REST APIs. And really that's what we're talking about here today. And the good news is that Rev-Track does support those integrations between many of these applications that you're seeing here today. The not so good news is that each blue arrow is or could be a potential security concern without the right security pieces in place. So if you're planning, to automate these activities, that you're going to want to make sure they are, of course, as secure as possible. And your internal InfoSec teams, or whatever they might be called, are also going to ask for this, maybe in a nice way, or what we've been seeing lately is they might be demanding it to make sure that these things are very secure when they're put in place. And during the past few months and even year or so, we've seen an increase in very deep security reviews of our software and development processes, which I was mentioning before, by our customers. And now with those new security incidents that I was mentioning that are all over the headlines, that review process has become even more intense. So if you're looking to go down this path, be ready for that. And even to the point of some customers holding up projects until all of these security reviews are fully completed and they've proven that the right security practices and pieces are in place. But I think we've all heard the old saying, iron is sharpened by fire, and I'm happy to say that Revtrack can meet these higher security requirements. And when it comes to securing integrations, the two terms that often come up are authorization and authentication. And they're the two ones to be familiar with. And really today we're going to focus more on the authentication part during the next couple slides and the rest of today's brief webinar. So let's take a quick look at the different ways to integrate, and more specifically, the way to authenticate for each of those integration methods. Okay. So fundamentally, I think we all know there have been two ways of integrating primarily over the years, SOAP and REST. Of course, many others, but they're the two primary ones that we've been dealing with our integrations. I'm sure you're familiar with these terms and definitions, more likely way familiar than I am. I'm not all that technical of a person. Both are, of course, valid methods of integration. But you could ask, is one better than the other? That's up for debate. And there is a ton of debate on those topics, which of course you can find online and read up on it. But it's clear that REST API integrations are being built and deployed today much more than SOAP integrations. We have this little chart that we pulled from this state of the API report, or the state of API 2019 report, a little over a year old now. And if you look at the figures, I know that one slid off. I apologize for that. It's about 2 or 3 to 1 that people were responding that REST is being developed and deployed, REST APIs more than the SOAP-based integration. So that's sort of the way the market is moving. But we're not really here to dictate what's right for you, SOAP or REST. And most large organizations, probably everybody on the phone, will have a mix of both today, everyone on today's webinar. And Revtrack supports both. Oh, sorry, this thing popped up. Just another quick comparison we felt that you might find helpful, which shows some of the differences, perhaps some of the advantages of REST over SOAP and why the market is sort of moving that way. And just in general, we've been having more and more requests for REST API support over the past few years, both from a security standpoint and from an ease of use standpoint. And that's why we've invested a lot of development effort to build and provide REST API support for the Rev-Track application to our customers. Okay, so here we are back with the authorization and authentication terms. I'm able to say it a little bit better here. There are 2 blog links over here, which you'll be able to access with the slides, as I mentioned earlier. So be sure to reach out to us for the slides if you're interested in them. The blogs go into much more technical detail than I'll get into. And as you can see by the brief definitions here, though, this is what I'll be able to provide. Authentication confirms you are who you say you are, right? That you can identify yourself electronically. Once that's done, authorization grants you the application, or the application appropriate access to whatever resources or prevents you from getting to them, right? So authorization is part of the application. For example, Rev-Track has an authorization structure to allow certain activities and prevent other activities for specific users, right? That's just part of any application. But we're not going to focus on the authorization concepts here. Instead, we're going to take a closer look at the authentication process. And you can see the 3 main types of authentication here for these integrations is HTTP basic authentication, API keys, and OAuth 2. Perhaps you're familiar with them. If not, you'll have a little more information in a few minutes about them. Just as it sounds, for HTTP basic authentication, it's simple, convenient, it's been around for a long time, but it's certainly not very secure authentication mechanism. It's passing the login credentials over and over again. It's really meant only to prevent what you'd call unintentional access from internal and non-threatening users sort of internally, and should always be used in combination with an encryption technology such as TLS or the old SSL. So even though it can be made more secure with TLS encryption, it's fair to say that most security teams wouldn't like to hear that an application integration that's being rolled out is based on HTTP basic, especially if there are other alternatives, right? So then, sort of moving in a progression, API keys have come along years ago, sort of as a fix to the early authentication issues of HTTP basic authentication, right? With API keys, very simply, a unique, and oversimplification, I'd say, a unique generated value is assigned each time, the first time a user or application would access something, proving, again, that the user is known. When the user attempts to come back a second, third, and fourth time, that unique key, which was stored, is used to prove that they are the same user as before and they have the authentication they need. So obviously, that's more secure, passing a generated key, which is controlled externally, instead of passing over the login credentials each time. So a little bit more secure. And then, I won't say recently because it's been around for a while, then OAuth 2 and the current version OAuth 2.0, if I can say that, came along, which has secure tokens. They're issued from a separate authentication server and can even be set to expire after a certain time if you choose to. And those secure tokens are used for the authentication. Of course, there's a lot more detail in this, and you'll see some of that in these blogs. This one about REST API authentication methods, and this one, as the title says, the difference between HTTP basic, API keys, and OAuth. Lots of good technical details in there. Again, they are different, but certainly safe to say that security experts agree that OAuth 2 is the best choice for authentication when working with REST APIs. Again, please refer to these blogs for details, and I can't get into too much additional details because it's certainly not my area of expertise. But certainly what we'd recommend and the best practice is to consider your security setup from the start when you're working with REST APIs for these types of integrations, because you don't want to get too far along in a project to find out that the security team would have some objections along the way. And also, it's not the situation that these authentications are, let's say, mutually exclusive of one another, right? They can and usually are used together in combination, but you have to use them properly. Okay. Okay. All right. Figured now, since integration between ServiceNow and Revtrack is very common and even becoming more common, wanted to take a closer look at REST API-based integration and OAuth security from ServiceNow's perspective, right? Because that's what we're working with a lot of customers these days. Again, 2 links to documents over here on the right, which you'll be able to access from the slides. The ServiceNow Security Best Practice User Guide, I feel, is a great reference, right? It's pretty compact, good information. When you go through it, a couple things for me to highlight is their best practice is to only use HTTP basic, which we were just talking about, for local accounts within the ServiceNow instance. So just sort of internal use. While they recommend OAuth 2 for external services such as integration, right? Incidentally, they also recommend SAML 2 for single sign-on, which Revtrack supports as well, but that's sort of outside the scope of today's integration discussion. We hope to have another deeper RevTrak Security webinar, which covers many different aspects of this in the future. Then the other part to here is then, which we thought was relevant, is if you take a look at a very recent and popular ServiceNow technical blog, you'll find even more details and recommendations and how-tos, how to set this up, right? Specifically, what they go into with this is that OAuth is the preferred and most secure authentication for REST APIs, and that it's only supported, OAuth that is, only supported for REST and not for SOAP. That was actually some new information. I wasn't familiar with that before, so hopefully that's helpful as you're looking into these different integration possibilities in the future. So ServiceNow's clearly in support of using REST APIs and securing that authentication process with OAuth 2. But ServiceNow isn't the only one, right? Additionally, applications such as Tricentis Tosca, the testing application, Jenkins, and others also recommend that same OAuth functionality for security. Excuse me. So where does that leave us, right? We feel Revtrack has some unique advantages in this regard, right? Currently, we're the only SAP change management application which supports REST and OAuth 2. We're sort of seeing that a little bit on the right-hand side. It's screenshot, and we have a few more screenshots in the next slides, but this is the initial setup. We wanted to show it to you just to show that obviously that we have it, but also that it's very well structured and easy to get going. I believe this one is showing the initial OAuth configuration back to ServiceNow, exchanging the information in the secure way to set these token-based authentication schemes up. The alternatives out there, including SAP Solution Manager Charm, only support SOAP-based integrations with HTTP basic. So take a look at that if you're moving in that direction. Again, security is a very high priority these days. And you need to take a look and understand your internal security requirements for these projects before you move ahead with some type of solution, again, so you don't get stopped perhaps mid-project by that security team. And just in general, if REST API is the way the market's going, OAuth 2 is the best way to secure those REST APIs. You'd have to wonder why invest in perhaps an older, perhaps less secure platform when there are alternatives out there like Revtrack and the support that we've built into our total solution. So looking at the time here, we're right about on time because we're looking at about a half an hour. Just have a few screenshots here. Again, not to train anybody on how this works. I wouldn't be the right person to do that. We have very experienced consultants to do that, but just wanted to give you a look and feel for how these things are set up and how they're structured and how easy it is to set up both the REST API integrations and some of the security aspects that I was just talking about in our Revtrack web core, which is a part of Revtrack where this all lives, right? And by the way, included for all our existing customers that this functionality is fully included. So you start off by setting up the API keys, just letting the Revtrack web core communicate securely via these API keys to the external application. Step 1, fairly secure method and very easy, as you can see, to establish. Then really when you're building out these REST APIs, there's the webhooks and the listeners. So I just have a screenshot or two of both, again, to give you a quick introduction. All in one screen for the configuration as you configure these things with the naming conventions, the events that trigger the types of activities that are going on. Of course, targets, the payloads, which are JSON-based payloads. So all of that information in one screen, easy to configure, easy to troubleshoot, and quite honestly, easy to get going. So that's the webhook for the outbound REST API communication. On the inbound, it's an event listener. I'm showing off my REST API skills here. And you would fill out additional information when we would click on this create button. Figured that was relevant because that's where you get to choose the authentication type for that listener. And you can see here we support basic, which is the HTTP basic, as well as the OAuth 2. We need to support both for our customers, but again, recommendations is to go with the stronger and more secure OAuth 2 methodology or functionality. And then this one might test your eyes a little bit, but this is the full screen. The event listeners have a couple more pieces of information that need to be put in place to establish these things. Okay, but again, point is you just have the keys up front, the webhooks, and the listeners, centrally administrative, a central administrative interface to configure and control and troubleshoot these things. So very easy to get going again. Last screenshot we have here is not to do with the REST APIs, but I had mentioned before our support for SAML 2 and single sign-on. I thought that would be relevant here as well, since we were talking about the general security topic. So hopefully here about 30 minutes in, that's given some good background information, that's really what we had for you today. We wanted to keep it a brief webinar. Just some final thoughts though. I think we all know that security is very important in today's environment. These integrations that we're talking about can really help streamline your SAP change management and even your SAP development operations and help deliver on your CI/CD initiatives or agile processes, whatever you might be calling them. Securing REST APIs for these integrations with OAuth 2 is highly recommended. And Revtrack supports our customers with the highest security standards. So that's really, again, what we had for you today. I'm going to try and navigate my way to the chat session to see if we had any questions or chat going on. Okay, here we have something. Question, does it tie into Jira the same way as you showed for ServiceNow? And yeah, absolutely. We gave an example today of ServiceNow, but the Jira integrations are very similar. You do have to take a look at Jira support for OAuth 2. It's my understanding that newer versions, just the latest versions of Jira, support OAuth 2, but older ones don't. So you need to make check on the Jira side about that. But our integrations can span ServiceNow, Jira, Azure DevOps, other testing tools, etc. So thank you for that question. Let me see, were there any others in the chat? Nothing in the chat. Let me take a look again at the questions. Sometimes I have to expand these a little bit. Show answered. Okay, it looks like that was the only one. So thank you for that question. But with that, again, we wanted to keep it just to about 30 minutes. I'll stay here for another half a minute or so to see if any further questions come in, either through chat or that. I'm also getting a ping on my phone, see if that has anything to do with a question. Okay, no more. So hopefully that means that the information was helpful to the team. Reach out to us if you would like to have the slides with those links to some of those blogs, the ServiceNow best practices security guide, those types of things. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to share while we still had everybody on the line. Speaking of security, because this just came through my LinkedIn the other day, and I thought it was relevant. We know that many customers, many of our customers and pretty much all SAP customers use Solution Manager. So there is some important security patching information about some vulnerabilities, again, found in Solution Manager, and nothing to do with Rev-Trac or anything. I just thought it would be relevant because we had a pretty good audience today. That something that's pretty important. It's a 10 out of 10 critical security flaw that was exposed. I believe it was fixed quite some time ago, but we know that patching, especially for SAMan, doesn't happen all the time. So just wanted to make you aware of that. And with that, I'll come back to the presentation. Check chat one more time. I don't see anything, so we'll end it there. Thank you, everyone, for your time today, and look forward to talking to you in the future. Okay, bye.